still when he was able to buy some time. So yeah, Trent was he was getting pushed back a little bit. I think he had one or two penalties on top of that. Rest of the offensive line didn't look great either. I think Pooney had a solid game. There were some pressure from his side and Colt McKivitz. I think a lot of times he was helping McKivitz, who did.
Welcome to the Stick 49er podcast. I'm Lucas McLaughlin here with Lucas Ortiz. The Niners drop a big one to Minnesota early. It's early, so let's keep our hopes up that we can get back on track. Looks like they paid Brandon Aiuk for a reason. He's going to have to step up, and the $60 million man is going to have to show why he's gotten that paycheck. Lucas, a lot of stuff going on. Where do you want to start? What's going on with you? What are you thinking about right now? Deebo's out.
Yeah, not a great game from us. It was definitely one of those games where it felt like they never got off the plane. And Minnesota's been a house of horrors. We haven't won there in over 30 years. Just got beat up on all facets of the game. Special teams was horrendous. Offensive line not good. Defensive line literally almost, besides Nick Bosa, I don't think any guy even got barely any pressure on Sam Darnold. And there was some miscommunication on the back end. Like, we got burned for a 97-yard touchdown by Justin Jefferson. He's the best wide receiver in the game, but there's no excuse. You had two guys back there to cover one guy, and they just got burned. So all facets of the game were not good. Hopefully this is just one of those games where you just got to chalk it up to early in the season. We're going to get better. We're going to build on this. It's a teachable game, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. It's interesting the way you look at it, because a lot of people are saying right now that Brandon Aiuk is going to have to step up, but it's a little harder without those guys there. I mean, it's easier for him to step up when Deebo's in the game, because they have to worry about Deebo. Now, I mean, luckily we're playing the Rams, who are worse off than the 49ers at this point. They've got some major injuries, and I'm actually looking pretty positive about this game as far as the way we're going to stand. It'll be interesting to see what these guys look like without their superstars,
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because the wide receivers weren't really getting open. And when Brock was able to connect, a lot of times they were covered and it was just tight. There wasn't a lot of open space out there. So maybe that scheme, maybe the defensive coordinator for the Vikings just knows what Kyle wants to do and wants to take it away from him. I thought their linebackers were in perfect throwing lanes to take a lot of the middle of the field passing options that we love to hit. Just not be there as much. We were able to get the ball to Deebo here and there. He made some nice catches with defenders draped over him. And I think Christian McCaffrey not being in the game really limits our ability to get into manageable third down situations. And third down was a nightmare this last game. I think we were 2 for 7. A lot of times, Brock will look at Christian McCaffrey when nothing's open in the middle of the field and just dump it off to him, get 4, get 10 yards sometimes. And it's always, keep the chains moving deal with Christian McCaffrey on the field. I love Jordan Mason. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. JP Mason has been a great running back, but he doesn't give you the dual threat that McCaffrey does.
Yeah, he's got big shoes to fill, and he's filled them pretty well. It's a tough job, but it's one he's done pretty well. I mean, you look at, he hasn't done anything to make them, he's given them enough chances to win, done what he can, and that's more than enough, because the kid looks great out there. Now I would like to see them throw some short passes to him like they would McCaffrey out of the backfield. What do you think about that? You think that they might start doing that now that Deebo's out? So I mean, it might have a totally different look to us. I just can't believe Sam Darnold.
Yeah,
I mean, he dominated the Niners.
He did, and there was no pass rush. We praised the defensive line last game for the pass rush and able to get there with 4 guys. I didn't see that this week. I think that Leonard Floyd was a big disappointment in this game. Javon Hargrave, so far 2 games in, hasn't been great, and maybe we need to look to get some guys some more reps behind him. Um, I felt like there was a lot of miscommunication in the defensive backfield, and just other than Fred Warner being all-world Fred and getting two more turnovers, I think he had a punch out again this game for a fumble recovery, and he had an insane, just like video game type interception that probably saved another same. This game could have been a blowout if it wasn't for Fred Warner. Vikings could have scored 2 more touchdowns if it weren't for his heroics. So
That was full on Madden. How it just stuck to his hands. Like what? Come on.
yeah, I think I heard that on the radio the other day. I just had to I had to steal that one. He was unreal. Like how he didn't make, so they every week they come out with an offensive and a defensive player of the week and a special teams player of the week. He actually did not get defensive player of the week, even though he caused 2 turnovers, had another double digit tackle day, and just was all over the place. Like he was everything for us. But I guess the people that vote on these things didn't see it that way.
Yeah, it's a strange thing the way those things work. But going to, or at least we're going to be at home against LA, and
On the road. On the
oh, I
road.
thought we were at home.
Kind of at home.
Oh, kind of.
So I'll be at the game in LA, and from what I've heard, this is just people that buy tickets online and use a Bay Area or Northern California zip code.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be at least 60% 49er fans. But that doesn't take into account people like me who are coming from New York, doesn't take into account people coming from all over the country and use it as a road trip, a vacation, whatever you have you. And it doesn't take into fact the amount of people that are 49er fans that live in Southern California, people that, move down south for work, for love, for whatever, and are big, huge 49er supporters, especially when the Rams left for St. Louis. I think a lot of people were left looking for a football team to support and looked up north for the 49ers.
Yeah. Well, I think we're going to hit the Rams at the right time. Seeing that Deebo's out, I mean, that's knock on wood. You never know what can happen in the NFL, but they're pretty banged up. I think all around. I don't know if this is correct, but I read that there are 14 starters out since the beginning of the season.
Yeah,
we had a year like that, remember?
Yeah, they don't feel sorry for us. They're going on, their third left guard or right guard. I heard moving all kinds of guys around the offensive line. They lost their 2 All-Pro wide receivers, Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. Those guys might be out for a while, so it might be a rough start for the Rams. They still got Matt Stafford, so they're still a dangerous team, and Kyron Williams is definitely a top 10 running back in my opinion. So you can't take them lightly. Just because they're hurt, just because we're a little banged up, doesn't mean this isn't going to be a hard-hitting, well-played game. I think as the season goes on, I think we'll start to tighten it up and start to, get that rhythm that we really saw at the end of the season last year heading into the playoffs. I just feel like this team is still playing in preseason mode.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Even
especially Aiuk. Aiuk didn't have a preseason.
But he didn't look that great. He had some kind of, he's sitting in the pocket just a little too long. I mean, he'll get it back, but
Well, this goes back to guys not being open. And yeah, there were some instances where a guy was open here or there, but it wasn't like he was, had 4 or 5 guys that were wide open to choose from. He was holding the ball because the first, second, and sometimes third read were covered. And, he was able to fit it in and jam it in there sometimes, but there was 2 turnovers, and one of them kind of came out of his hand, and it was looked like an interception at first, but then they said it was a fumble. And then the other one was a tightly covered receiver who was draped, and they tipped it up in the air and got the interception. So he didn't really get a lot of time, in my opinion. I felt like Trent Williams probably had his worst game, and we'll talk about it more in the trenches, but Trent Williams, probably the worst game I've seen him as a 49er.
It's so weird.
I was like, who's this guy on the left side? Because
he's an old guy now in a short rest. We had a Monday night game, so
yeah, not a lot of rest. He's an older player. Didn't play in the preseason, so.
But no excuses, man. He's got the money now, and we all know why. We know what he can do, and he did not show up. So let's actually do that because, man, this is
might as well,
probably
right?
one of the worst games I've seen him play, but let's get down in the trenches with Lucas Ortiz.
Down in the trenches with Lucas Ortiz.
All right, so
down in the trenches.
We talked about it earlier. This was not a good game for the O-line. They were really disappointment. Trent Williams, we sing his praises because that's all he does is have phenomenal performances, dominates the line of scrimmage, and usually guys going against him don't even get anywhere near Brock. But this game wasn't the case. He was getting pushed back actually into Brock, and that caused a little hesitation with Brock's rhythm, and I felt like he kind of heard the footsteps, so to speak, had to move around in the pocket, and a lot of times there wasn't anybody open still when he was able to buy some time. So yeah, Trent was he was getting pushed back a little bit. I think he had 1 or 2 penalties on top of that. Rest of the offensive line didn't look great either. I think Pooney had a solid game. There were some pressure from his side and Colt McKivitz. I think a lot of times he was helping McKivitz, who didn't look good at all this game, and was beat multiple times. Brendel was terrible.
It's a team effort. They all look pretty bad. I mean, and that's why it's amazing that Jordan Mason was able to still get 100 yards.
Yeah, and it's just gonna be a case of short rest, short week. They had to fly to Minnesota and play the early window, and they never play well in Minnesota. Like, they just have their number. It's something about the crowd, the color purple. I don't know what it is. Indoor stadium. It's just been a house of horrors. So the offensive line will bounce back. I don't think this is what we're going to see the rest of the season. I don't think it's anywhere indicative of how good we will be moving forward. It's just it wasn't a great game. I think Minnesota had a great scheme. They blitzed way more or stunted their defensive line. That gave us a lot of difficult time staying in front of them, and it's just something that we didn't really see on tape previous week against the Giants when they rarely blitzed or didn't blitz at all. Yeah. So, kudos to Brian Flores, the defensive coordinator of Minnesota, changing up the scheme, showing something completely different one week than they did this week, and yeah, it worked. And this might be a blueprint for other teams going forward, but hopefully Kyle will look at it and plan for how do we beat this type of defense where they're constantly shifting, showing one coverage and changing the coverage, trying to take away the middle of the field. Maybe do we need to run outside the ball a little bit more, outside the tackles. I do want to see Isaac Guerrero get behind this offensive line. I think he offers a change up to Jordan Mason, who's more of an inside runner. I want to see Guerrero, get behind Trent on a toss sweep or an end around would be great. Just use that speed because he's not really good at picking holes right now. He's more an athletic, fast, give him some space and just let him go at it type runner. Yeah. And I think he would benefit behind this offensive line right now on more of an outside attack. So that's how I see it. What do you think about the performance this week?
Well, it was lackluster, but how much of that do you think plays into the fact that Darnold was a Niner last year? I mean, do you think he's able to give them enough information to where they can develop a scheme to beat Shanahan? Because they outcoached Shanahan. I mean, really.
I don't know if it was so much Darnold as it was Brian Flores being familiar with Shanahan. If you guys remember, Shanahan was the OC for the Falcons when they made it to the Super Bowl and lost to the Patriots. Brian Flores was the defensive coordinator for that game. Wow. So Kyle had his number the first half and they scored a lot of points, but in the second half, Flores shut him down. And I think he kind of knows Kyle's offense. He's had a pretty decent history playing or coordinating defenses against him. And it's just, he might be one of those coaches that has his number like Spagnuolo seems to have with the Chiefs.
Yeah. And you just mentioned that, Shanahan has too many Super Bowl losses and we need to get a win. And that's the only thing that's left for this team to do. They need to do it now because next year might look a lot different. It might look a lot like this game coming up when you think about the free agents that are going to be tough to sign and how much money you got to give Brock Purdy, depending on what we do this year. But no matter what, we're going to have to give him a chunk of change. So it's interesting the way the salary cap works. Let's just hope that this year can end up being the one, the one where we go and win it all with Shanahan. I don't know, man. It's gonna. This is bounce back against the Rams, and what do you see in that game as far as how we're gonna fare against the Rams? Because
Well, what's first and foremost that I'm thinking about is how much of a lack of a home crowd is going to hurt the Rams. Yeah, the injuries on their side are going to be very important, but I think the fact that they're probably going to have to go to a hard count in their own stadium is embarrassing. I think it's going to be loud there. There's going to be a sea of red in SoCal at SoFi Stadium, and it's going to annoy the fuck out of them. It may motivate them, but I think it's more of a negative effect. I think on a team when they know that most of their fans aren't actually at the stadium; they're watching from TV. And it's not it's not a cheap ticket. Like it's one of the most expensive tickets in the United States to go to a football game.
yeah,
Believe me, I know firsthand. So yeah, the crowd's going to be against the Rams. I think our team is just going to have to run the ball and rely more on the ground attack. I felt like even though we had a 100-yard rusher with Mason last game, I still think we could have ran the ball more, and we could have relied on some of the backups to take some of the load off Mason. Grendo got one carry. It was and for no loss, and it wasn't a great run, but can't just give up on the kid because they had one carry for 0 yards. Let's get some of the other players in there too. Let's get someone off the practice squad. I heard one of the running backs in the practice squad, Vaughn, has looked really good, and everybody touts his ability as being a guy that can get some yardage and some tough runs and maybe be a pass catcher out of the backfield. So more run. Brock's been solid. Like he, believe it or not, who's leading the league in passing yards after 2 weeks? Purdy.
Yeah.
Do you know who's either 1 or 2 in passing pass completion percentage?
Brock Purdy.
Yeah, he completed 78% of his passes last week.
But I'm a little critical on him because one thing I noticed in this game, and I don't know if anybody mentioned it, but he's telegraphing a little more than he used to. Like he usually go through his progressions and then you see him kind of look there, and throw there. But sometimes he just drops back and looks at one guy and then throws the ball. And you want to see him go through those progressions. Maybe, I don't fault him for anything because obviously it was a team loss all around, but it's interesting when you really start to look at him play and how well he plays, and he still has great numbers, and like you said, he's leading the league, so there's not too many gripes, but you still want to watch. The reason why he's so effective is because he's able to go through those progressions and then hopefully slip out of the pocket and not get sacked, but that's partly on our line, I guess, right?
Yeah, and maybe this game we finally get the real Brandon Aiuk, and he shows up and shows us why he's worth $120 million for the next 4 years. He was a big disappointment last week. Some people say he's open and Brock didn't get him the ball.
This week. I think it's going to be
tougher. Other people say the lack of training camp wasn't helping him at the start of the season, and he's kind of got off to a really, really slow start. Kittle had a really nice game. I was happy we finally got Kittle a touchdown. He looked sharp. He's still a guy that we can depend on for short, middle, deep passes. I mean, there's nothing he really can't do. Still an all-world blocker. So Kittle had a nice game. We're just gonna have to rely more on those two big guys, Kittle and Aiuk.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that they
will step up as well.
They find ways to get him open. But I fear that when the other guys aren't there, Deebo's not there, there's way too many ways you can just hone in on what Aiuk is doing. But he's so good at it that hopefully he breaks a couple of big ones and makes some of those incredible catches, like against Kansas City in the Super Bowl. But magic. Hopefully the magic comes now that he's got the money.
Yeah, and I think something that we haven't really shown too much in the first 2 weeks is screens. We haven't really thrown too many screens, and we haven't really done a lot of play action, rollouts, and just getting Brock out of the pocket, moving the pocket to the right or moving it to the left. I think that helps him out. He's a very accurate thrower, even on the run. And let's see him use his legs a little bit. Maybe some RPOs, run pass options. Mix it up, Kyle.
I was talking to my brother, and he was saying, even if McCaffrey is hurt, at some point you just put him back in the game just as a diversion, because he changes everything when he's in the game. And obviously you don't want him to play hurt, but my brother was basically making a point to say, it makes a huge difference when he lines up because they have to worry about him.
Yeah, he's a game changer, sure.
All right, man. So let's do a little score predictions here.
Okay. All right. So I've been thinking about this, and I think this would be a game. I've heard some people in the media. Damon Bruce talked about this game, and he really thinks that defense is going to step up, and this is going to be a game where the defense wins. I kind of want to agree with that, but I still feel like our team can easily put up 30 to 40 points on the Rams. I think their defense is not great. They're definitely one-dimensional. Yeah. And if we take the ball away a couple times and execute and score TDs off those turnovers, this could be a blowout of a game. So I do think defense is going to hold them to under 16 points. But I think we can score, let's say 34 on the Rams, 34 to 16 sounds about right. How do you see it, partner?
I want to see a punt return for a touchdown. It's been so long. Who even was the last guy that did that for the Niners?
Well, first we have to catch the punt, which seems to be the hardest fucking thing to do on this team since Deion Sanders was the punt returner. I think he was actually the last guy to return a punt.
No, I think Harbaugh had one guy that could do it. A really fast guy. What was his name? There was a guy that played with Harbaugh that had at least one or two.
Yeah, I think you're right. He had one against Seattle.
The fastest one on the team.
Ted Ginn Jr.
Yeah,
I think it was Ted Ginn Jr. Yeah. But it just
seems a long time ago. Jeez.
Every year we have a muffed or fumbled punt, and can we just catch the ball and not turn the ball over? I think Jacob Cowing is going to be really good, and I do want to see him get some run at wide receiver, maybe some run plays from him, some end arounds, and really utilize his 4.3 speed. But yeah, let's get a punt return.
Just because we didn't talk about it, we can't be having that breakdown like we did with that blocked punt, man. That was awful. Yeah. It was two guys that just kind of let the guy through, or who was responsible there for that?
So a lot of times the punt return team is usually trying to block the punting team, and rarely do they actually come after it unless they called a punt block play. And that was just one of those instances where the guy thought he was blocking and it was the other way around. Like he came after the kicker and busted through. So it's one of those things where one guy usually has to block two people, and in this case he only blocked one and just let the other guy go through without at least slowing him down a little bit. So that'll get fixed up. I think we have one of the best special teams coach in the league. We used to be the special teams coordinator for the Seahawks for a long time when they were thriving at that aspect of the game. So we'll be good. We'll be good. I mean, this is, how rare is it to have a block punt? Very rare. And, at least we got it out of the way. We got it out of the way early on in the season. Hopefully
you're watching and listening to the Stick 49ers podcast. I'm Lucas McLaughlin here with Lucas Ortiz, and we're wrapping it up here. So I'm going to say 49ers 38, the Rams 17.
Wow. Very close to my score.
What was yours?
It felt like I influenced a little bit.
No, these things just come to me.
34-16.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, we'll see who's right. Who's wrong.
The price is right. You got to be exactly on it or one below. All right. So
man. Good
performance from the offense. Good performance from the defense. Niners 2-1 heading into week 4.
Yeah, it's important that we win this game. So
yeah, and I'm looking forward